Hello, this is Sierra Rhodes. This is for group number 3 for ALTC 806 Module 3. I am summarizing the article that is supporting students with dyslexia at the secondary level, an emotional model of literacy. So before I get into the background of the case study, to define dyslexia, this article says that some children may have specific learning difficulties in reading, writing, spelling, or manipulating numbers, which are not typical of their general level of performance, especially in other areas of the curriculum. They may gain skills in some subjects quickly and demonstrate a high level of ability orally, yet may encounter sustained difficulty in gaining literacy or numeracy skills. Some children may become severely frustrated and may also have emotional and or behavioral difficulties. And so that's the consensus of what this article is focusing on are those the emotional components that are attached to students with dyslexia. Oftentimes it can produce loss of self-esteem, sensitivity to criticism, and just alienation from their peers and other adolescents. And dyslexia isn't always detected earlier in school. So this case study specifically looks at the secondary school. And I'll go more into that in just a minute. But previous studies have really just focused on strategies in the classroom that have to do with like phonemic awareness and other multisensory things. So how to identify numbers and letters and just the strategies for that. But they have not focused on the whole child. So a meta-analysis that was done in the U.S. that was done by Elbum and Bond. It was a school-based intervention demonstrated how schools focus on enhancing self-concept of students with learning disabilities and achieved positive results. And so oftentimes there's a struggle between the student and the teacher because the student's feelings and emotions creates a barrier. It creates a barrier to learning and it creates a barrier to establishing connection with the teacher because oftentimes the student is left frustrated and due to their behavior they may be removed from the classroom, and it just causes disruption in a positive learning environment and a positive learning experience for the student. So some context about this specific case study. This is year 10 for a student named Matthew in Northern Ireland. My interpretation of year 10 is that this student is probably maybe 8th or 9th grade is what I'm thinking, because they're not saying he's 10 years old, but he's year 10. He performed very well academically in primary school, had great friends, had a positive experience in primary school. But it says by the time he reached to year 10, he was being disruptive. He had a low ability, and he was very attention seeking. It does say he's 13 years old, so he is in middle school, what we consider middle school. Let's see. And so because of this change in behavior, and his parents noticing that, the school was concerned, so they decided to build a case study for him. So to really figure out what the problem was and to pilot different strategies on him. So some of the strategies that they focused on, and once again, they're looking at the whole child, the holistic approach toward with him with dyslexia, not just those academic approaches. So one thing was empowerment. So they invited Matthew to all the meetings, and they wanted to give him autonomy to so that he didn't feel that isolation or that being singled out or being made fun of because he was different. So he was asked what his learning style is, what he thought his learning style was. And so what they found from that is that he works best with flowcharts and pictorial graphics and mind mapping. And so then they started staff training to increase awareness of dyslexia because Matthew was not the only student that was experiencing this learning disability. So they had a staff, I'm sure, professional development to help them understand and manage those students, review their grading policies on as far as when it came to like marking on spelling and grammar, and then just be consistent in their approach with them. Teachers no longer requested him to read out loud because that was a very big thing for him, because it pointed out to his disability that that was a weak point for him. So instead he would take the time out daily to read at home with his parents, where he felt more comfortable, and that his parents used a strategy with him. Oh, where did it go? His parents, they did paired reading at home on a daily basis. In addition to that, he didn't have to dictate, like if there were notes that he had to copy or write down, he didn't have to do that, but instead he was provided a copy with those in advance, and he was able to personalize his note taking. So again, making those charts and maps so that it made sense to him. And then his teachers agreed to grade his papers in front of him so that it could monitor his progress, so he knew how he was doing with the learning, so that he wouldn't do all the work and then get the feedback and be discouraged it was a low grade. So just an ongoing process of his learning. And then school psychologists, they provided the strategies for spelling, neuro-linguistic programming. He also met with a mentor 2 times a week for about 10 minutes a day. And so this mentor was kind of just someone he could just kind of vent to. So if there were any experiences or any questions that he had for the teacher that maybe he just found to be too embarrassing to ask, he would often voice that with his mentor, who would communicate with his teacher, just once again to remove that being pointed out, or that attempt to being made fun of, or being singled out. Also, his mentor would provide him with forward planning. He was able to self-evaluate and just monitor his own progress and efforts in the classroom. As far as written work, he was provided with an alternative, so like tape recording or word processing versus writing. So once again, that spelling wouldn't be a barrier. He was also helped with organization, so he would color code his books and his folders. And then he was provided a syllabus as a graphic organizer, once again something that was more individualized to his learning style. They also had to get the parents on board, so once again he did those paired readings daily. And then I'm assuming with the culture of Ireland, families are very hands-on, so children have chores. But if it was an important assignment, then Matthew did not have to do those chores, and he could spend more time on that assignment. Just as we all know, not everybody was on board, so there were some teachers who just could not see the bigger picture and felt anxious or overwhelmed, because you have to go that extra step to make those accommodations for that student. And so the future hope is that the majority of the teachers would eventually lean to a state of equilibrium, just so once again that connection with the student isn't severed, and that it's providing those safe and inviting learning environments. After 6 months, he did improve. His grades were improving. Some things were still a struggle, like I said, with the consistency with the teachers. Homework at home was still a struggle with his parents, but there was significant progress made as far as his confidence in the classroom, his willing to work well and hard in the classroom, and then also just socially, he had more peers. He just felt more accepted because he didn't feel like he was just isolated because he has a learning disability. The article mentioned something that I thought was interesting, but transition to secondary education coincides with entry to new stage of development characterized by rapidly shifting social, emotional, and educational needs. So just if you are a secondary teacher, especially at the middle school level, there's a lot of changes already going on with students biologically, neurologically, academically, just from the having to organize and handle all the different classes and teachers and relationships socially and stuff. So it was just already a pivotal time for him. So on top of the learning disability, the school knew they had to intervene. And to just to wrap this whole summary up, teachers contribute to enhancing students' self-confidence by conveying that they care for them and teaching learning transactions. So once again, I think my biggest takeaway from this is that each child is different. Of course, it's easier to deal with children who are all the same because you know you don't have to do that extra step to make that accommodation. But that's just not the world we live in. Whether it is from trauma-informed students to students with disability, learning disabilities, behavioral disabilities. So it's up to us to keep making them feel safe. Remember, they are the child, we are the adult, and we are responsible. We should be responsible, more responsible for our emotions and how we approach kids who cognitively, you know, nothing has, you know, formally developed up here, and we should model to them, you know, what that looks like, and that they are resilient and that they can persevere. Thank you.